This is Lagos. Okay, welcome to the program. Sunny Rabo Live is on right now. We have a man who's worried about Nigerian education. His name is Martin Udogie. He's a powerful radio host. But beyond that, he's a first-class accountant. He has worked with Accenture before. He said that reading culture in Nigeria is zero. In fact, he said very poor. And even cited the fact that West African school certificate examinations results are just non-existent. They're so poor. And he also says that people who should know better don't even read anymore. And he actually cited himself as an example who had to wake up one day and decided that no way, I can't be like that. If I'm a first-class holder, how did I achieve it if I didn't read? Of course. Well, me too. Have I been reading? You'll find out later. He wrote a book, and it's How to Read More. Simple Steps to a Lifelong Habit of Enjoyable and Rewarding Reading by Martin Udogie. I know many of you know who Martin probably is, but let me give you a brief bio. He graduated top of his class in the university with a first-class degree, but he stopped reading books afterwards for years until he joined Accenture, a top American management consulting firm, and was given a book to read. That book and hundreds others later transformed him. Martin started his career with Citibank and went on to work in different capacities with other banks, leaving as a senior bank executive to start his own business. He is a chartered accountant, a strategy consultant, and a sought-after business and economy analyst. Wow. He has leveraged his skills into becoming a multidimensional professional. He is an avid media operator, a newsletter publisher, and a nationally syndicated radio host. He facilitates and conducts training for leading corporate organizations in Nigeria. Ah, what a powerful, powerful, powerful CV, I should say. Martin Udogie, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you, Sonny, for having me on your show.
You know what's so funny?
Yes.
Every 6:30 Tuesday, you are here, sitting where I sit
Absolutely,
now.
yes.
And drilling people as if there's no tomorrow. And you know, so many people have gained from that program, and I thank you. That's the Fidelity
SME Forum.
All right. So now we're talking serious business. You decided to write a book that I would have said, would I have written a book like this? What prompted you beyond what you just said here?
Actually, I read a lot. People, I mean, these days, you know, like you said in the intro, when I left school, I also stopped reading because I think I kind of associated reading with school. Okay, but when I joined that firm, Accenture, and I was given a book to read, that, like I wrote in the book, you know, completely changed my orientation. And then it started me on a reading, if you like, regimen. And these days I read, like, you know, on the average 3 books a month. So people kept asking me.
3 books a month?
Yes.
What's
3.
the average volume, number of pages?
Well, it depends. Just
maybe
any
100, 200, 300?
No, I mean, I just read Hard Choices by Hillary Clinton. That's a 660-page book. It took me a week.
Whoa.
Okay. Before then, I read Condoleezza Rice's book, No Higher Honor.
You're picking the thick, strong ones.
Yeah, I love big books because there's a lot in it.
Yes,
okay, and then it scares people. So, okay, but to come back to your question, so people kept asking me, Martin, how do you read? And as I kept getting those questions, I was on vacation in Singapore in January. And I was just thinking, what am I going to do next? What do I do? Because I've always wanted to write.
Yes.
But I didn't know what to write on. So the thought just occurred to me that maybe I should write something about, just tell people about how I discovered my reading habit or rediscovered my reading habit and how I'm able to read as much as I do. Okay, so that was the primary motivation. Okay, but I also wanted to share the story about some of the amazing rewards you get, when you read.
Like how? Which one? What kind of rewards are these?
There are several. There are several, yes.
Okay.
For the individual, for the nation, for the society, and I also drew, I also pointed out instances where some of the ramifications, from not reading. But some of the benefits, looking at the country, for instance, like I said, I was in Singapore, and you know that the man that transformed Singapore, a man by the name Lee Kuan Yew, was the Prime Minister of Singapore. He wrote a book called From Third World to First. Now, in that book, he was saying that, what really transformed Singapore wasn't something out of the ordinary. And that he was blessed, and that quote is in this book, he was blessed to have ministers who read, and that they shared. Yes. So, most successful leaders, if you check, there will be people who read. Bill Clinton reads, Obama reads, even George Bush, that we all look at and say, this guy doesn't look like a smart person. But in this book, and in his book called The Decision Points, he was saying that, one way he read was actually in a reading contest with his top presidential aide, a man by the name Karl Rove. So they were measuring who will read more as a sitting president. Barack Obama, when he went on his first summer vacation in 2009, he went with about 5 books, and all of them 2,300 pages of books.
And he was reading. Okay. What's wrong with Nigerian reading culture?
Yes, we're talking about our reading culture that has just, collapsed. And I was making reference to this thing called the wicked problem. And I was saying that in Hillary Clinton's book, Hard Choices, she also made reference to this wicked problem to explain or try to explain the Israeli-Palestinian issue. And she was saying that thing is a wicked problem. The wicked problem means there's no one solution
to it.
Yeah, there's a what they call multifaceted. It's hydra-headed, multi-dimensional. So it could be the child. It could be home. We have homes, and a house where reading is not seen as a virtue. If your child doesn't see you read, has never seen you read, it's not likely. It's very difficult to convince your child to go and read when, but Dad doesn't. I've never seen this guy read.
He doesn't even read newspapers.
He doesn't even read. Just watches Premiership.
That used to be a culture. At least read the papers.
My dad was a headmaster. He used to come by Observer. I'm sure you remember Observer.
Observer, yes.
Ooh, we used to read it. So at one level is a family. Is what you term priority. At another level, it probably also has to do with the teachers. The quality of teachers that we have these days. I know there was an experiment in this book I quoted an experiment that was done in Kwara State.
Yes. I
don't know if you remember, where they tested some teachers who were graduates in public schools. They tested them on primary 4 work. I think about 2,000, teachers. These are graduates, okay? And only about 7 of them passed.
Out of how many?
Out of about 2,000.
No.
That was horrible. I mean, so it tells you, the gravity, even at the level of teachers, okay? But there are several things that also account for that. Okay?
My worry is that the ministry or ministries of education around the country, don't they think about this? Don't they look at this as a study to find out the research where the root problem is?
If you talk to the teachers, they will point to the fact that the working condition, they don't have the tools, and there are people who just going to teaching because there's no other thing to do. Yes, but teaching is you are called to teach. Those days,
people enjoy teaching.
People enjoy it. America, they have. The other day, I was seeing pictures of Obama. He went to Barack Obama. He went to a school, a primary school, like a primary school. I think he had a function in that state, and he used that opportunity
to just go into a school
just into a primary school, and you can see the kids, their eyes were wide open, and he was teaching them, But you see, so our leaders need to do that. I remember also reading in Condoleezza Rice's book, when she was Secretary of State, Uncle Sonny, there was going to be a press conference because the Foreign Secretary of UK, Jack Straw, was visiting.
Yes.
Now she took him to her school in Alabama,
where she went
primary school. The press, everybody. I can see those kids.
If I have that opportunity, I'll take him to Immaculate Conception.
We should not just abandon our school. And it was amazing. The village. This was her daughter. She was. So you can imagine what that would do. I remember Bill Clinton always made reference to the handshake he had with JFK when he was 60-year-old. Yeah, and that just sparked something in him.
And that's how he became
so
president.
we need people, we need role models. We need to connect them back to education and to school.
Well, let's look at the leadership quality, because you've given an example that I think is missing in Nigeria. I see some leaders, they show qualities that I really believe they ought to take advantage of. Are they under too much pressure or what?
In fact, when you're under pressure, you should read. I mean, there's a book I read called Your Brain at Work by a gentleman called David Rock. Fantastic book. Because see, and let me give you an example with Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton, when in his first term as president, he was facing crisis because he was young, was a governor of a small state, and I was in charge of the entire country. So it was chaos. It was chaotic. He couldn't, he couldn't function. He was just fire brigade everywhere until they engaged a consultant. So you know what this man did? He restructured Bill Clinton's routine in such a way that every 2 hours in every day he was supposed to do absolutely nothing.
And just chill.
No phone calls, no meetings, nobody comes. And if you read his book, My Life, he said that thing, he did amazing things because he could focus, he could think. Now leaders are just running up and down, chasing.
They're under pressure.
They're under tremendous pressure. But guess what? That's the time you need to back off.
Yes.
And just do something slightly different.
Well, let's take you back a little. Why WASC? Let me start with the confusion of WAEC and WASC. I hear people say, I don't have WAEC certificate. For goodness sake, when I was growing up, what I studied for and the certificate I got was West African School Certificate.
Yes.
Right? So that's WASC.
Conducted by WAEC.
Conducted by WAEC.
Exactly.
Then I'm now hearing, I don't have WAEC. WAEC is the West African Examination Council. Examinations Council.
Exactly.
So that's the body. So should I have a WAEC or I should have a WASC certificate? West African School Certificate.
I think nothing has changed since your time, Uncle Sonny. It's still WASC. That's the certificate you have.
Yes, but people will say I don't have WAEC.
Yes, I mean, it's just, it's just the same attitude,
Hey, get us a bill.
Yes, like, is this Twitter culture we have these days where everything is okay?
Twitter is very new. This thing has been... Even Facebook is innocent.
Yes,
but how can we... I'm looking at you and I notice that you actually deliberately took it upon yourself to change, what you've perceived as a lazy approach to reading culture. What do you think the average person can do? Somebody who has really not read for a long time. Yeah,
I mean, that's why I actually wrote this book, because I was in that situation. And I think it can change, okay? But I think sometimes people need to, I have friends who buy books. And they say, I buy. It's not affordability.
I buy
I'm sure
books.
You buy as well. But
I have about. I don't want to tell you how many books I have. It will shock you.
Exactly, I know.
I have over 1,000 books.
Wow, that's a lot of books.
And anytime I travel, I buy.
You always buy books, yeah.
Yes, and then I put even the airport I bought it from, because most times I was right. Sonny Rabo put the date in Roman figure.
Okay.
And then so and so airport. And then, like
Fantastic.
that.
If in this book, I encourage people to do that, because, it takes you back. Yes. Because these days, when I'm going through my library, and some of the books I cited in this my book, How to Read More, it brought back memories. I could remember where I was when I bought it or when I was reading it. Some could have been in South Africa, some would be in America, some, in Singapore. So that's a very good habit to cultivate. But to come back to your question, how can people read? What I always say is that I think many of us, we confuse reading with study.
Okay.
There's a difference, yes.
That's powerful.
Now, when we were in school, we're supposed to study. So you have an exam coming, or you have an assignment, so you have to read for hours. 1 hour, 2 hours. You are studying. That study is intense for a long stretch. So you do that in school, because there's a specific purpose. Okay, but when you graduate from school, it doesn't mean you should stop. What you now begin to do is to read. Now read, you don't need to read for long hours. I think that's where people are getting it wrong, and I explain how in this book. What you need to do is every day look for short period of time, and it has to be a time that is most.
So you read to entertain you.
Read to inform yourself, to become
inform.
informed. Yes.
I like the way you're carefully choosing your words, because you're really driving home a point.
Oh
here.
yes, because and aside, there's so many cases about people who read. They don't read for hours. Uncle Sonny, they read. In fact, all you need is to read a book.
Yes.
You can read a page. If you are really slow, an average reader, it might take you about 5 minutes to read a page. Okay. So over an hour, that's probably about 12 pages. But let's say you read 10 pages in 1 hour. You don't need to read those 10 pages at a sitting.
Okay.
All you just need to do is, even if just 30 minutes a day.
What about a flighty-minded person? Somebody whose mind is never at rest.
That's a focus issue. There's a book called Focus by Daniel Goleman. It addresses that problem, because it's something that is very common. Everybody suffers from it. Your mind drifts. Yeah? So, but there's a way you can always bring your mind back and focus on what you're doing.
I'm looking at somebody who says, my life belongs to myself, but others depend on me, that we may move on so that I can understand one another. How then can I apply agreement to allow others to take from me, and my agreement to allow myself to take from others? Am I confusing you?
Are you talking about knowledge sharing, or?
It's supposed to be knowledge sharing.
Okay.
It's supposed to be. But then you find that if I read this book, How to Read More, Simple Steps to a Lifelong Habit of Enjoyable and Rewarding Reading. The only things there, and you have stressed them, enjoyable, rewarding. So I might ask myself, am I going to really enjoy this? Or am I going to get reward from reading it? Or what's the priority for me elsewhere? Whereas my parents might ask me, Sonny, go and read. Go and read. Go and read your book. And some of these kids are seeing that as a forceful impression on them, as against when they are willing to do it themselves. How does that strike an average-minded person?
I think it's very profound, the question you're asking, because I think us parents were part of the problem, because, go and read your book is uttered like as if you are punishing the child. Yes. That ought not to be. Every reading can be like a family affair. You can read to your kids. You can read as a family. You can share books. You can pass books around. But the key thing is actually, like I state in this book, is to make reading enjoyable.
Okay.
You make it enjoyable. Maybe
and rewarding.
The rewarding comes later. The reward comes later. But once you hook your kids or your staff, like I said, when I resumed in Anderson Consulting, which is today called Accenture, the first thing Dr. Sulaiman, who was managing partner, did on the first day was to give me a book. He didn't give me targets.
Do you know you both you look alike and behave alike?
So Dr. gave me a book, and I was interviewing Ifweko Omongwe Okaro, who was the executive chairman of FRS.
Yes.
I was asking her what made FRS successful.
Yes.
She worked in the same firm.
Yes.
Before I joined, and she was saying that she was also given a book to read because she was trying to explain the success at FRS. And she remembered that a gentleman called Dick Kramer, who was her managing partner then, gave her a book called Synchronicity.
I know that book.
A powerful book.
Yes.
And I made reference to it in my book, How to Read More.
Synchronicity.
In
fact, my sister-in-law is so crazy about it, Gloria Mojigwe.
Okay.
She actually